control the many. We're constantly bewildered of what's going on in the world. This is going on, that's going on. Why do they do that? That's silly, that's incompetence. Why do they do that? That's daft. Why do they do it this way? Because we don't have the coordinates to see that which plays out as complexity, and on that level it seems so, actually is a lot simpler when you connect the dots. And that's what is not done. People investigate sometimes in journalism, though most journalism is reading the morning papers and watching the newsroom telly, unfortunately, in terms of investigative journalism these days, with honourable exceptions. You can focus on a dot and you become expert on the dot. But unless you know how that connects to that, connects to that, connects to that, you cannot see the picture. You know, years ago, when I was a kid in black and white television, they had a game, a panel game. And one of the rounds was, it was a picture that was shot of something really ordinary, an orange or a sponge or something, really, really in close-up. And the question was, what is it? And when people didn't get it, because it looked like, is it the moon? What is it? Then they pulled back. And eventually they saw, my goodness, it's an orange. It didn't look like an orange, did it? When you connect the dots, you see the orange. When you don't, you see the moon. Because when you connect the dots, the puzzle pieces start to fit. And people, organizations, events that appear to be random turn out not to be. They turn out to be an elephant in the living room when the dots are connected, whereas what's going on when they're not. And that elephant in the living room over the last nearly 20 years of research, full time, and my goodness me, it has to be, given the scale and depth of what has to be investigated for these dots to be, for the dots to be understood, never mind connected. There is the movie. The movie is the mainstream version of reality. Bin Laden orchestrated 9/11 and all this stuff. But behind that is an agenda for a global Orwellian state, which is unfolding by the hour now, not even the day, which uses the excuses of why this is introducing its elements through the media to put itself together. So, movie, food crisis, secret agenda, introduction of GM foods which the British people don't want. Movie, food crisis, hey, maybe GM food is the answer to that. Whoa, we've got to look at it again. Secret agenda, centralisation of power in a bureaucratic fascist superstate called the European Union. We need to have more majority voting so that we can be more efficient. And what you start to realise is the dark suits, that's the uniform, it seems, of the puppets, the dark suits that appear to be in power are actually not the real power. The real power is in the shadows, and they don't get elected in and out because people don't even know they exist. And so whether it's Prime Minister A or Prime Minister B, these never change. And therefore, despite the rhetoric and a little tweak here and a little tweak there, because we're different to the last lot, the same agenda of centralisation of power continues unchecked. These are people that have a illusion of power. The real power is that which is constant whether they're there or not. I've been talking about this, quote, global elite that operates behind the so-called elected politicians. And now it's become more and more and so blatant that that's the case, that people like David Icke, in this book, The Superclass, he's a scholar at the Carnegie Institute for Peace, which was shown by a congressional investigation in the 50s to be manipulating war. And he's also a former director of Kissinger Associates, which is a notorious organisation, obviously headed by Henry Kissinger. He talks there, yes, An elite does control events. But, oh no, it's not coordinated, it's like a loose coalition. Bullshit. Behind is anything but a loose coalition, manipulating events towards this Orwellian state. And what you get is the same force manipulating two sides to a common end. And often this level, the movie, doesn't even know it's being manipulated. This is what we need to identify, because this is Big Brother. This is just Big Brother playing out. It seems that the Clinton family and the Bush family in America are opposing each other because one's a Democrat, one's a Republican. If you read my books in detail, and not just mine, others who've had close associations with these people, these are one family in effect. Used to run drugs through the Mena airstrip in Arkansas when Clinton was governor. And so you have people who appear to be in power, and then you have those that are pulling their strings. Anyone think George Bush is in power in America, please? Often it's one step back from the person that seems to be in power, where you get the greater power, as with Cheney and Bush. And then you have this thing, oh yes, Blair's just a puppet of George Bush. Why was Blair so close to Clinton, a Democrat? One could understand that, Labour and all that stuff. And then he becomes even closer to Bush, a far-right Republican. Why? Because they're controlled by the same force. They sing from the same song sheet. And it's the same with these three people now, running for president, controlled by the same force. Barack Obama stands for change. I know, because he said so. His man behind him is Zbigniew Brzezinski, the National Security Advisor in the Carter administration, who went public in the last couple of years, admitting that he worked to manipulate the Soviet Union to invade Afghanistan to weaken a fellow superpower. No problem, it only cost 1 million Afghan lives, who cares? And he is behind a guy who stands for change. Why did Clinton say change, 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 and now he's saying change, change, change? Why? Because of the way the system works, most people at any point in time are sick and tired of the status quo. It ain't doing them any good at all. So someone comes along and says, I stand for change. Oh, I'll have that. I don't like what I've got, so yeah, change. And then they get in, and what happens? No change. And it's the same with these two. Blair Mark II. You know what David Davis's biggest problem is going to be in the next few years, if he really stands against Big Brother? It's going to be stopping his own party in government from carrying on the very agenda he's now opposing. I'll tell you how it works. Controlling a country with two parties that have any chance of forming a government is a piece of cake. All you have to do is to create mayhem, disruption, and bring leaders to the fore who are considered not credible in the party you do not want to get in. So right the way through the 1980s, when Margaret Thatcher was the one who had to be in power, the Labour Party, mayhem. Oh, I don't like Margaret Thatcher, mate, but look, you can't vote for them, look. And then came Major, and what happened? We had a switch. Boy Blair was suddenly the golden boy. Murdoch newspapers suddenly switched to Labour for the first time. And what happened to the Conservative Party? Mayhem, upheaval.